TimmyG. Welcome to my track breakdown of making dubstep by only using the test oscillator in Logic Pro. All the sounds used in this track were generated through the test oscillator, and the only effects I used were EQ, compression, pitch shifting, and the fade tool. Today's tutorial focuses on how to make the sub bass and the sub bass topper. The last video in this series went over how to make the drums, and if you didn't get a chance to see that, you can click on the link in the description below to find that video. But anyway, let's get started. The next instrument we're going to do is the sub bass. So I'm actually going to make a new track for this. And the way I make new tracks is I typically just duplicate another audio track and then get rid of all the effects. You could also hit this button. This will open a new track, so I'll just do this. And then for my input, to save myself some time, I'm going to pick bus 1, which will get me that test oscillator that we were using from before. So I'm going to hit create. And I'll call this the sub. And all a sub bass really is a super low frequency sine wave, which is great because the test oscillator can do that for us. So I'm going to go back to the test oscillator. I'm going to unmute it right now. I'm going to unsolo that too. And I hear the white noise playing. And I'm going to change this to my sine wave. And I'll turn it off for a second. And the reason I picked 110 for the drum is because 110 hertz is the note A. And I'm going to go cut that in half and get the octave below to get the sub bass version of A. So that's going to be 55. And if you're listening with just a laptop, you might not be able to hear this. So if you really want to hear how the sub sounds, make sure you get yourself a good pair of headphones or a good sound system. So here it is. So this is the sub bass frequency that we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record that, and then that's about it to generate that sub. So here it is. So turn it on, and then record that. I'm going to hit R to record, or you can hit this. Solo that out. So here is my sub bass. I'm going to mute my test oscillator. And then what I did is I had the sub bass kind of go along with the drums at first. So if you see here, I'll just go to this. I'm going to mute this sub bass for a second and go to this. I hit Z to zoom in on this. This is my first sub bass note. And to get rid of that click that plays whenever you are playing an audio file, I just use the fade tool to fade in at the beginning and then fade out at the end, so we don't hear that click. That click is basically faded out and it is non-existent anymore. So that's about it for the sub bass. The only thing that I did differently is for the first notes, I played this A, so the same frequency that we did. And then for this note right here, if you go to this region control, I transposed it down 7 semitones. That is from an A to an E. So basically I did the tonic, or the one note, down to the fifth, the perfect fifth below the tonic. So that's a little bit of music theory there for you. And that's about it. That's all I did for the bass line. It just goes from that 1 down to the 5 and back to the 1 and so on. And that's about it for the sub bass. The next thing I did was I added a square wave on top of the sub bass in order to give it a little bit more crunch, a little bit more energy, and so you can hear that bass line if you're listening on like a phone or on speakers that don't have a good subwoofer or good bass. So I'm going to go back to the test oscillator here, and then I'm going to make a new track here. I'll duplicate this. I'll call this the square sub over. Doesn't matter what you call it. And then I'll go back and unmute this. And then what I'm going to do is change this to the square wave. So that's what that square wave is going to sound like. So we can record that. I'll just record that really quickly. So the next thing that I did is put on some EQ to the square wave to kind of make the sound a bit less intense, especially in the high end. So I cut off a lot of the high end, and I even cut out some of the low end so it wouldn't interfere with the sub bass. But that's what I use. I use the low cut, the high cut, and then the high shelf, and I lowered the gain a little bit. But that gave just the right amount of tone for this sub bass topper. And what I did with that square wave, if you look down here, is I just kind of chopped it up and then did the same thing that I did with the sub bass. Is I started here and had it the exact same length as the sub bass note, and then when I changed the note of the sub bass, I changed the note of the square. So that's what that sounds like. And I'll play everything that we've done so far. So I'll play the sub bass and the square wave over the sub bass with the drums. So that's about it for the sub bass in this track. If you like this video or if it helped you out, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or video suggestions, be sure to leave a comment. If you want to see more content like this and check out my original music, DJ performances, or DJ tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.